Today's episode of the Outer Roll on the MonkeySports podcast is brought to you by GoalieMonkey. If you haven't yet, check out the all-new, redesigned, newly fangled GoalieMonkey.com. While you're over there, plug in promo code PODCAST10, PODCAST, the number 10. That's 10. 10% off your entire order. Let us know what you guys think of the new GoalieMonkey.com. Beautiful new reboot. We have been working on it for seemingly ages, it feels like, with everything we've got going on. But check it out. Shoot us a DM. Let us know what you think. Use that promo code PODCAST10 to get 10% off your order. Let's get into some NHL playoff talk in the Outer Roll podcast.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome into the Outer Roll on the MonkeySports podcast. Tons to talk about today. We're finally into the official NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. Not any of the play-in, anything like that. We're finally in the thick of it. Got Graisen here. Graisen, did that Blue Jackets game ever finish, or are we on like overtime 48?
Yeah, it was a long game. I don't know if we're done. I'll check a little bit.
Yeah, we'll have to pull up a TV. I think Jonas is up to 948 saves right now.
Yeah, he's pushing a new record for all-time saves in one game.
All-time saves in a season.
in one game. Yeah.
Obviously, I mean that's got to be what we have to lead off the show with, right? Like, that's the most insane thing I've ever seen.
So I was here at my desk watching the game. The game starts around, I think it was like 3 or 4, and I watched that game until I went to bed that night. Like, I was so close. I was like, all right, I got to start wrapping it up. And I was like, oh, this game's still on.
Yeah, it lasted 6 hours, right?
Yeah, it's something ridiculous like that. Just first overtime, I was like, oh, this is going to end pretty quick. Like, both teams they're vibing, they're going, they're quick. And both of the goalies were unstoppable in the first 3 periods. I mean, yeah, the Lightning got the 2 goals that they got in regulation were somewhat lucky. The first goal was like, all right, like, it was kind of like a redirection, like just goes in, like, okay, that happens. And then the second one, Korpisalo moved his foot at the perfect time, and it just fell right in. So it's like not really luck. But during that regulation, I was like, man, like they're not letting in anything besides the couple that did. And then first overtime, I'm like, these guys really aren't going to let in anything. Second, third, fourth. And even in the fourth, everyone's looking like they're half speed. Everyone looks like they're
dead.
Gassed.
Absolutely.
Like 2 games. Because, you get into overtime, you're going 100%. We're going to end this. And then it goes into 5. You're like, you got to be kidding me.
Maybe this is just like weird sports brain thought of me, but like to some extent, I feel like not having fans had to have had an effect on that game. Because you imagine if you're the home team, like overtime is, as a fan, obviously like you're turning.
Everyone's on their feet. And
exactly. You're going crazy the entire time.
Overtime that I've attended, everyone's on their feet, especially in the home crowd.
And I don't mean to like discredit like Korpisalo or anything, because obviously like 85 saves is absolutely
it's
just
record
otherworldly. Quite literally, yeah.
I think it's probably like 11. I think the record was like 74.
That's like practice numbers. That's like you're in goal when the shooters are shooting on you kind of numbers. You make 85 saves. But at the same time, like I think if you're in front of a crowd, I don't know if you make 85 saves. I don't know if we see a 5 overtime game in front of people. And if you do, imagine being there. Imagine being like, oh yeah, I was at a hockey game for the last 7 hours.
Man, because if that started at a regular time, regular playoff.
Yeah, that was a primetime game. It ended 3 in the morning,
2 or 3 a.m. And that would have been a primetime game, is the thing.
Exactly. Well, then they had to push the other game, and like the Canes and everyone were like, "Yeah, sorry guys, we're playing at 11 a.m. the next day."
The Bruins and the Canes, they're playing in the same arena.
Right.
So it's the way that it worked out was, I think the game ends and then there's like an hour or 2 in between. I think it's 2 hours because they have to let the ice sit after a game after being Zamboni.
Yeah.
And then they have warm-ups and everything, and then they go into the game. So they were ready to play hours before this game ended.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so it's like, what do you do? Like, if they had to play, that wouldn't have been a joke.
And again, that's
because that game would have ended at 2 a.m.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Can you imagine? Like, all right, like we're
then,
finished up here.
East Coast guys in
11:30.
Boston
Yeah.
are like, oh my god,
Yeah.
like let's wrap it up. But 11 a.m. start for a Boston crowd, like I know might as well. But that game went on forever.
Yeah, which is so weird too. Like, imagine as a player, you wake up, obviously you're getting hyped. It's the first round of the playoffs, first game of the first round of the playoffs. You spend,
Yeah, you get through the round robin, you're like, man, that was cool. Like,
yeah, you're ready to
we're
go.
feeling good.
You're sitting, in the stadium, you're sitting wherever you are in the hotel, whatever, watching this game, knowing, okay, in a couple hours, like that's me. And then it's like, oh, hey, sorry, another night to sleep on it. Like, I can't imagine those guys got any sleep that night. At all. Even if you're a seasoned veteran, like you
They
can't
had
go
to
from
have, they had to have gone immediately back to the like hotel and everything, and like once they were undressed, and then just went straight out.
Yeah,
I
because
imagine.
now you've got nerves of an entire full day that you've sat waiting to play this game. Wild times.
Yeah, it's like, hey guys, you got to wake up at 9, be at the rink by 9:30, and then we're gonna be playing by 11. See you there.
And the funny part is, it's like this is such a. I mean, obviously, it's such a. This is the only time in history that anything like this would happen, just because of the bubble and everything that's going on. But
You mean like the crowd stuff and?
well, no, just not being able to play that game after, right?
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
you're not playing in the same arena.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, what else do you do? Like, if baseball is any proof of not playing it in a bubble, like that's been a mess so far. So it's like, I don't know. That's why. That's the only thing I could see when we kind of talked about in previous episodes about like seasons having an asterisk. I think we were talking about it in one of the baseball podcasts. For those of you,
We also
that
talked
listen to
about
everything.
it slightly at the end of one of the hockey podcasts.
Yeah.
But it was like pretty brief. It wasn't.
But it's like, it's the weird stuff, right? Like, that's the only thing that I could see getting an asterisk, because it's like when the schedule itself is getting messed up, and I still don't think, because it affects everyone, like kind of the thing we've fallen on. But like, again, it's so weird. Like, you still have to win the same number of games, whatever. It affects everybody, but it's just so outside of the realm of like typical sports possibility that it's like, all right, whoever lifts the trophy this year, like you got to have the caveat at least of like, oh yeah, remember they had to play a 7.5 hour game in the middle of it in front of no crowd.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's maybe my tangent there, but
Yeah, I don't really think there should be like an asterisk next to it. Asterisk. But maybe like a Purple Heart or something. Like something different.
it makes them
Don't
stronger.
make an
that they've
asterisk.
won the-
Asterisk looks bad. Like Gold Star.
Man. Yeah. Purple Heart, easy. Gold Star makes enough sense. It pretty good. All right, going into more. Again, it was our hockey podcast. We had to call Tyler back up and make our predictions last time. Pretty much just crumble up that piece of paper and throw it away, because a lot of the predictions we had are wrong. Penguins are out. Maple Leafs are out. I said this on the hockey podcast. I will double down right now. The Maple Leafs being a not great hockey team will always blow my mind. It makes no sense.
I don't get it, man.
How do you have so many good players and are bad?
Yeah. What I think their best player is, Austin Matthews, was the only one who looked like he actually was doing something. I feel like everyone else was just kind of there. And it's not like Anderson was doing bad. Like, yeah, we're on the goalie podcast. We got to
go some goalie talk for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But Anderson's numbers were fine. But they also got to think they're reversing the Blue Jackets, who just took a 5 overtime game. Like, Blue Jackets are not a bad team. They have good goalies. They look like they know what they're doing. Their coach proved it last year that they knew what they were doing, especially when you're playing one team and you can shut it down. We'll get to that in a second. We'll revisit that series and talk about it. But the Maple Leafs being bad is so strange to me. Like,
it frustrates me.
My prediction was like, okay, maybe they'll figure it out this year and they'll go far. They have the talent there.
They're home. They're playing in their home arena.
So is Edmonton.
Exactly. They're gone too.
Yeah.
Oilers, I'm like not less surprised about, but it's like, you look at the top, I don't know, 10, 15 guys that are marketed in the NHL, 3 of them play for the Leafs. Like, there's no reason why a team that puts together that much talent doesn't do well.
Yeah, it doesn't really make much sense to me, but
maybe that's a marketing thing. Maybe that's like dumb brain of me to be like, oh man, if I see Mitch Marner everywhere, he must be fantastic. But then each like big games, like who knows? And same thing, like you see Austin Matthews, you see all these guys that are the face of the league.
Yeah,
and I think it's just another like dumb sports brain of like, oh, they have to be the best player, right? And then when they don't do well, you have a guy like me who's a casual fan that's like, why
I've
is
been
this
saying
not
the same thing about Marner since he got that big contract. It was like, does he really deserve that big contract? He's good. But is he that good? I didn't really think so. And I think it's kind of selfish on some of those players to take contracts like that when you see how much, like, you know, people like Crosby are making, because Crosby wants a team around him. Crosby wants to win. That's what he's there for. And some of the other guys, it's looking like they're there to get paid.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it's very easy to sit as a fan and be like, well, why are these guys taking these big contracts to play for bad teams? But it's like, in the same situation, I'm going to do this.
You have to remember, like, the negotiation era between all those. It wasn't like a pinpoint thing. There was long negotiations, way too long for especially like Nylander.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, it's tough. Like, I'm thinking of it from the mind of like, so I'm a Chiefs fan. That's probably the team I follow like the closest.
Yeah.
And obviously, okay, Pat Mahomes just signed a $500 million deal. And it's like, that's insane. Like, how is that going to hurt the Chiefs down the line? But it's like, okay, if you're in a position where like you like where you're at or whatever, you can make more money. People are probably going to do that before they like go to another team.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the Leafs, I believe they said they're going to shake something up. I believe there was confirmed chats about
now's
that.
the time.
Yeah, it's like, all right, well, something's not working here. Someone's got to go. And I believe Nylander is the one that they're looking at to get rid of, because Marner is kind of a face of the franchise.
He's a young guy, I mean.
Yeah, and so is Matthews. Matthews, they're both. I think if anyone you keep, if you had to keep one guy, it has to be Matthews.
Yeah, 100%.
Because
he's the face of the league right now.
He's insane.
Yeah.
Like, he's very, 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 very good. So,
great mustache.
Oh, fantastic. Some people don't like it. Don't understand.
No, big fan of it. So this is a goalie podcast. We obviously made the joke about the 85 saves and just an insane game, but I want to get into like the psyche of that. Like, obviously everybody that's played sports has had that moment or that thought where like, okay, I'm in the zone. Everything I do is working. But like, how the hell, especially as a goalie, like such a physically draining position, maybe you can talk about it obviously better than I can. How do you even stay in the game for 85 saves and then lose? That's the
I was actually
most
thinking
heartbreaking
about
part about it, right? How do you wake up the next morning thinking, I just played the game of my life, the game of my career, the game of anybody's career, come away with a loss. Now we have to come from behind. Like,
you're literally,
I don't know
you're
how
a
you get over
record
that.
holder
Exactly.
and a loss. Like,
it's Devin Booker dropping 70 points on a lot. Like, I don't understand how you just keep the mindset of like, all right, on to the next one.
yeah, all right, and we're the best. Let's keep it going. But just like real chipping, like just real quick, like you gotta imagine that's kind of what McDavid feels like in a way. It's like, all right, I'm the best player in the world right now. I'm putting up these insane numbers every single year, and we can't even win a playoff game.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing here? But, you know, specifically talking about Korpisalo, me personally going to overtime, you're like, all right, let's get in this. Let's get it done. Let's get it over. I remember a couple years ago when I was playing, I had this one weekend where the other goalie, he got like the flu or something. He was like sick. And he's probably going to hear this, so he's going to laugh about it because he was texting me the night after, and he was like, he was watching on like a live stream. He was like, "That was insane," like. But so I had to play 2 games back-to-back nights against the same team. First night we go into overtime, we go into a shootout, and we win. And so I was like, that game was insane to me. I think we won like 3-2, and I was like on fire. Like, because as me as a goalie, and I imagine this is what a lot of other goalies are like, maybe at the NHL level, they can dial it in a lot faster. But I hit the zone where it's like, all right, I'm not thinking about anything that I'm doing. I'm just in autopilot mode playing.
Yeah, you just clear your head. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, that was something hard for me to do, was like, I was always thinking about like other things and like how I should play. But you hit this Zen mode where you're just playing. And I imagine that's what he was like for the last, like from the first period on. He was in that mode for hours.
But again, like, that's
85
so exhausting.
85 saves, and like they weren't easy saves either. They like a lot of what Vasilevsky made some highlight saves in that game, absolutely, and I feel like not enough people are talking about him right now. 65 is still
it's still an incredible game. Yeah,
I think it's 65. It's 60 something, but
I think five sounds right.
Yeah, but a lot of the Blue Jackets shots where they were getting into the zone and they were getting something on net, and that's what you have to do in that kind of game, is because you never know. Like you've seen how the Kings beat the Rangers a year ago. It was a shot off the pad, rebound to Alec Martinez, and they won the cup. You have to try absolutely everything in overtime. So as a goalie, you're hitting the Zen mode. You're like, all right, let's just get through this. But after like second overtime, I can imagine you're like, because you have to go back to the locker room. You have to sit there like 15 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And then you come back and you're like, all right, let's re-gear in. So the absolute mental capacity to zone in for 2 games plus another period is beyond me, first off. But, or it was, 1.5.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I can like equate it to me that it seems like them is like throwing a perfect game in baseball. Because, and even that, throwing a perfect game in baseball, there's so many different factors. Like you're going against different hitters. You have time to like, obviously you're going back in the dugout and everything.
And you can pre-scout yourself and be like, all right, here's him coming up against these the next.
You're in control, right? Exactly. Yeah. You're the one saying, okay, I'm going to throw this pitch to this guy, whatever. Which goalie is the complete opposite, right? You're completely reactionary. But you had said, you go into the Zen mode and it started early for him. But again, to be that way for that long is insane. Like every athlete in the world takes plays off. Like that's not a weird thing, unless you're like playoff LeBron or something.
I feel like goalies have to not have that. I feel like it's a lot more of a player thing, but like, goalies do have like nights off and like plays off and stuff like that. But if you watch goalies close enough, you can see when they're off.
Yeah.
They're like quote unquote off, because it's like, even though they're making saves, you're like, wow, that almost went in, or like, wow, he's not controlling that.
I've watched Ben Bishop enough times to understand that. Yeah.
Buddy. Yeah. And stuff like that. But what I was saying about like the my personal experience with like overtime and stuff like that is the second night we also went into overtime and a shootout and lost. And I remember how like upset our team was in the locker room after the second game, because we went from being incredibly happy on like that Friday night to like just sad the second night, because it was like, man, we worked so hard for this. Like it was a high shooting game. I think there was like 45 shots per team or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like me and the other goalie were both going. Like we were on it. And like, respect to that guy, I forget his name, but we both had to have been in that mode where it's like, all right, let's just get through this. But looking into like an overtime, it's like, all right, I just have to make these saves. I got to do this. I got to do this perfect. Absolutely no mistakes.
Always.
So getting into that, and then getting into like overtime after overtime after overtime, and not a shootout, because in a shootout you're like, all right, I got to versus this one guy.
And it ends. Yeah. Right? Like, that whatever is going to happen.
We've seen long shootouts, but it's like, all right, this eventually ends.
Yeah.
But for overtime, the only other game that I can reference this one to is a couple years ago. I think it was like UMass Lowell versus maybe it was Boston College. But it was a few years ago, and they were in triple overtime, and BU was supposed to play after them, because I remember I was like waiting for the BU game, and it was triple overtime, and you could see BU watching, because it was the Beanpot. They're watching from outside. You can see the team watching the game, and waiting. So like being ready for that would have been insane, because they had to be. It's not the NHL where you can, we're going to postpone the next game. It's like the college. Right. You're like, all right, guys, we're going to play at midnight.
Yeah.
So the mental capacity for Korpisalo to do that is absolutely insane, and to lose that game has to be heartbreaking for him. But it's also the playoffs, and you got to be like, all right, let's go back into tomorrow.
Is like I've always throughout this podcast I've always erred on the side of like, yes, obviously these guys are professionals. Like they have lost games before, they've had incredible games before, things don't go their way, whatever. But like to an extent, they're also still human people. Like you have to wake up the next day, just so tired. He has to have felt awful.
I imagine Korpisalo just laid in his bed for the entire next day.
He might still be there. He might still be laying in bed.
He's playing.
I mean, I know what I said.
He's still there mentally.
Yeah, right. But like there has to be that just anguish, right? And fortunately, it's a game 1. It's not a game 6. But,
man, can you imagine if that was like a game 7? That's what ended it all.
I literally can't.
You make 85 saves and you end in overtime.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, that was it. Sorry, team. I did literally anything I could. Because like,
that's the thing too. Is like,
as a goalie, you got to think you're like, I can only do so much.
Right. And that's the thing too. Is like, as a fan and as a player, or as a fan and like as a teammate, there's nothing you could say that like to Korpisalo that was like against his game, right? There's nothing.
After that game, every player had to have gone up to Korpisalo and been like, dude, come on.
Sorry.
Like,
yeah, like, sorry we even gave them 88 shots.
Yeah, sorry we couldn't get in one of our 60.
Right. Anyway, so obviously we had to touch on that. That's the craziest goalie thing that's happened since our last episode. But kind of looking around the other series, I know you had a couple notes if you want to jump into those a little bit as we near the 20-minute
I just wanted to speak on a couple teams who didn't make the playoffs, because there is some teams that if there was a regular full season, I think they would be in the playoffs right now. But because of the qualifying rounds, like some of these teams had to basically play prove it. Like, all right, beat this other team.
Yeah.
And like, come on. Like, are you guys actually good? And I just wanted to touch on a couple of teams. I have all of them written out, but I wanted to talk about the goalies on those teams. We're going to start it with the Maple Leafs because we already kind of touched on it. Anderson, I think he's good. I think you keep Anderson. I think your team is the problem.
Well, again, it's like they have so much talent, right? There's so many good players there. That
It's the front end of it.
Yeah, and it's the shaking up part. Like you had mentioned that they're talking about moving someone. But like, if I'm a guy that's a second liner or a third liner, like I'm immediately upset, right? Because like, okay, if they're going to start like chopping heads off, probably going to be someone like that. And so it's so tough to...
Well, I believe they're going to get one of their big ones away, which for one cap space, so you can pick up more people to help out that organization because they have some good defensemen in their program, but they need to have someone who's like in charge. And, because you got to look at teams like Dallas. They got Klingberg and Alexiak, defensive forces. You got to have kind of like that kind of mentality going into it because I feel like Toronto and Dallas are pretty similar teams. Like they have a huge core of players that are all really good, but then they have like not much on defense, but they do have a couple guys. But, put in more defense on Toronto, I think can shake it up. But from the goaltending standpoint, like I don't think Anderson's your deal.
I think we're in a weird part too. And again, maybe this is just me not being like as much of a hockey fan, but I feel like we're at a part where like the incredible goalies and like guys that are just otherworldly are kind of not really there anymore. Like I feel like either high tide is rising all boats or like these big names you're not really seeing, like these guys that are just getting older, like the Andre Fleury's of the Marc-Andre Fleury's of the world, like are going away.
So you're kind of like talking about like Quick, Lundqvist,
all the guys
Fleury,
that any like non-hocky fan
I feel like
those names.
It's just a different era. Like those guys are getting old, but like those are the household names like you and I grew up with. But yeah, absolutely. I understand that. Like, Fleury's still there. We'll get to that in a second with the teams that are still in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But
dude, the shot of Lundqvist on the Rangers bench when they were getting eliminated.
Yeah, we'll hop into them real quick.
Let's go into that now because like that was so sad. Like, how he puts in so much.
He plays the first game of their qualifying round and they lose, and so they start playing. I think it was Shesterkin was who they played. Honestly, sometimes I can't tell the difference between Shesterkin and Georgiev. But I believe that Shesterkin was playing.
They played an Eastern European, yes.
Yeah, one of them.
Yes.
And he's good. Shesterkin's good. Georgiev is also very good. So I did see this headline that the Rangers GM had a conversation with Lundqvist. Mm-hmm. What was in that conversation, not many people know, but it's well speculated. He has a no-trade clause.
Right.
And so they didn't qualify this year to go to the Stanley Cup
playoffs, yeah.
And honestly, if there was a full season, I don't know if they would have. But looking towards the future, if there's a time, if there's a time to rebuild and get rid of someone big and have a new team going forward, it's now. Because they are now, as of this podcast, they have the number 1 overall pick.
Yep.
Of
which is
Lafreniere.
I mean,
that's everyone is saying it. So you get him, you pick him up, and if he is what he is hyped up to be, he's going to be one of these front running players, kind of like a McDavid, Matthews type player. He's going to be that franchise guy, even at like an Eichel level, because a lot of people underrate him. He's still that franchise player out there. Like, we've talked about that one before.
I need to tell my Jack Eichel story at some point, one of these episodes. We'll get there later.
We'll hit that one on the hockey episode next time. Because that is a blast.
That's a good story.
That one's funny. But yeah, so we look at...
Sorry, Jack.
Sorry, Jack, if you're listening to this. Shesterkin and Georgiev, you can run with both of those guys for the next 5 years. They're both relatively young. They're both very good, and they can both be starters in the right mindset if you give them an opportunity, because during the season, they were both great. Lundqvist, he's getting old. Yeah, he's the king of New York and everything. Like, I understand that. Personally, I've never been like a huge Lundqvist fan, but he is who he is. Like, the dude has history with the Rangers.
He's a legend. I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, he's a legend.
Yeah, he's one of the best of all time. Like, stats alone, like, doesn't matter opinion or not. Like, he is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we're looking at that, And I think if they can drop off Hank, maybe he goes to Seattle the year after.
Yeah,
maybe he
cool.
goes gets a 1 year somewhere and then goes into Seattle.
I don't know. You think he stays around?
Maybe not.
I kind of thought
Maybe he just
that's
retires.
it. That's what I
maybe
that's what I
after
heard.
this year he goes, hey Rangers, I'm out, and then someone else buys his contract or something like that, and they can maybe dish that for some assets. I don't know, but it's the Rangers' time to get good. So I think getting rid of Hank, especially after this kind of loss, is kind of what you have to do, because you also have the second overall pick from last year, Kakko, and then you have Panarin, and then let's not even get into the other players, but that's 3 right there. You can build a team around that, and then you have 2 very good goalies that you can dish one in a year or 2.
And that kind of going back to the shot of Lundqvist, just so sad sitting on the bench. That's the crummy part about this shortened season and everything. And we talked about it on the baseball podcast, is you're going to see these legends or these fantastic players get the short end of the stick.
Which will keep going. There is a lot of that happening.
Absolutely.
Right now.
Lundqvist is one of those guys that deserves to go out. If that was his last game, obviously deserves to go out on a high note. But at the same time, if you're the Rangers, you don't have the luxury of even putting him out there.
It's hey, we're trying to make these playoffs. We have to do what we can.
It's literally do or die. And if it was a regular season game, even if it was the last regular season game, you can put him in for the last period and letting him get the standing ovation, let him get everything that's
standing ovation in a blank arena.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
I'm sorry,
everything that's deserved.
Which it sucks. Yeah, and
right now you get stuck with the guy that's, defeated. There was no other way to put it other than just defeated.
Yeah, he's nothing I can do now.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see where he goes in the offseason.
Seattle would be cool, though.
Not where he goes. I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to get traded indefinitely, but I want to see what happens with that story. Moving down to the... I'll save this team for a little bit later, but let's a quick couple sum ups. The Penguins, they have some stuff to talk about. You're gonna dish Murray somewhere? You're gonna dish Yari somewhere? Don't know.
We were all high on the Pens, so I was surprised to see them.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna be good. I thought they're that kind of mentality team that can just kind of all right, we're gonna pick up, we're gonna dish through this, and we're gonna do okay in the playoffs. Because even if they made second round playoffs, they're fine.
Yep.
You're not really worried about much. You have some assets that you can get in the offseason and build. But Penguins' future is a 50-50. Either they bounce and they get rid of some people. I heard they're getting rid of, I think it's all 3 of their assistant coaches. All of them are gone.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I saw, I believe that was what the headline was, is none of them are going to come back. It's well, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wild...
I laughed because you and Tyler, our former Hockey Monkey guy, were talking about the Wild on Twitter, and you were like, yeah, it doesn't change the fact that they're just the most boring team.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like the color combo. That's about all I can tell you about the Wild.
Yeah, I played on a team that was the Wild. I loved it. Yeah, it's cool, but it's man, they're such a boring team, and their goalies aren't really doing much right now. I kind of expected them to be out, so we can just toss that to the side.
Okay, while they're out. Sorry, Dubnik.
Jets for Hellebuck. They got eliminated. That sucks. I forgot who they played, but that sucks.
They're gone.
Gone. Preds, a little bit of talk on that. Rene and Saros. Saros played.
Rene's another one of those guys. That
exactly. Rene's been in the league longer than I can
one of those
think of.
legends that it's is he gone?
Yeah.
Maybe. The new guard is... soon, if not next year, the year after, where it's you could look through and probably not name not you, but a casual hockey fan could look through and not name 29 of the 31 goalies.
Yeah, there's some lower end goalies, even being where I am when being around hockey all the time, I'm wait, who's this guy again?
Exactly.
Because it's some of those guys they just move up out of nowhere and they'll stick in the backup spot, and I don't really catch that every once in a while. But I know 95% of the goalies right now. Mm-hmm. I even know some of the AHL goalies better than I know some of the second NHL goalies right now. But,
shout out Francois.
he was in the Rangers organization. Exactly. He went to their main camp.
Hey man.
I hope that's
a hole soon.
He's good. He's in the EC. Francois having a good time. Shout out. But yeah,
we talk about him a lot on this podcast.
Hey, he's a great guy.
We talked about his pads a while ago, and I guess with
Bauer.
With Bauer.
Yeah, great guy. Absolute stuff. Treat to be around. I'm pretty sure I said that exact thing previously. But then one I really want to talk about. So yeah, Preds, Rene Saros,
Gone.
See ya. That's a story you got to keep an eye out for. Is what's Rene going to do? Because Saros is good, but they couldn't solve the Coyotes. I called that. Coyotes are a good team.
You did?
They also got smashed on by the Avalanche last night.
Also a very good team.
Avalanche are gross. But the Florida Panthers, they have this massive contract for Bobrovsky from Columbus because Columbus has 2 goalies. They're in the same situation that the Rangers were in, where it's like you have this legendary goalie who's really good, and
who, for all intents and purposes, was like on a career, redefined his career after last season. Like how good he played compared to what he had done the past 2 or 3 years prior. Yeah, which merited him getting that contract.
Yeah, and then you got the two other goalies coming up. You got Merzlikins, however the hell you say his name, Elvis.
Okay, Elvis, good, that works.
And Korpisalo, who, if you didn't know his name before, you know him now. Yeah. Thank you. They're in that same situation that the Rangers are. So you might see something similar like that where Lundqvist kind of disappears and goes somewhere else. Maybe he works out somewhere else. But for right now, is Bobrovsky the problem for Florida is what I'm wondering. Because me and Chris were talking about this the other day. We're like, what's up with him? Like, they're getting destroyed. Every pre-scouting report for the Florida Panthers was like, you get rid of Luongo because he was getting old. Like, it was his time to go anyways.
Another legend that's like changing of the guard.
Yeah, like, so he's retired now. He's been for a couple years. And, you know, they were like, all right, we just need one save. That's what a lot of their players were saying in interviews and stuff is like, all right, we just need like one save to like change some of the momentum of these games. Because it's like, they have a really good offensive core and they have good D, but it's like, you know, what needs to change? And a lot of people thought it was the goalie. Bobrovsky comes in. They have a okay year, and then they get knocked on the playoffs.
I feel like Bobrovsky, from what I've known, like what I've seen, and like, again, just what I know as a hockey fan, is like he strikes me as someone that's very similar to like a Ben Bishop. Like when he's on, it's like, oh man, this guy is a top 2 goalie. But when he's not, which is like relatively consistently.
It's weird because he was that like amazing goalie.
Exactly, for like an entire season last season. And then he goes to Florida.
Even before that, like ever since he left the Flyers like a long time ago, he's been this really, really good goalie who, like, you get to the playoffs and it's like we can't quite get over the hump.
Right.
But it's like they get rid of him because they have these 2 other guys coming up, and obviously it's working for them right now. Blue Jackets had a fantastic series last year, and now without him, they're doing really good this year. People didn't really know how they're going to do, and both of the goalies are showing up. Merzlikins had a crazy regular season, a lot of memorable moments from that guy. So it's interesting to see, like, Bobrovsky, what Florida's going to do. Let's say you get into next year, everything, you maybe just wash out this year. You maybe get into next year, and he's where he is in the standings regular season, which was very, very low.
Yeah.
It's like, what if he shows up like that again? That's 2 years out of the 8 where you thought you guys were going to be a contender.
Right.
You know, do you maybe try to ship his contract somewhere?
But who's going to take that on? Like, you have to be in a bad strait.
A lot of money there.
Yeah, exactly.
And Quenneville's there. I think he's solved, you know, he's got 3 cups under his belt with the Blackhawks. He's not a bad coach. He solved other things. Chicago needed a mix-up. That's why they got rid of him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what is really wrong there, but that's something I really wanted to talk about is Bobrovsky. I did a blog in the very beginning of the year during one of their first games when they got crushed, and I basically said that it's not Bobrovsky's fault. You know, I was looking at each goal and how the plays developed. And like, is this his deal? Like, is he doing something wrong here? Sometimes it looked like he is doing something wrong, and like, all right, he could have had that one. He should have had that one. You're an NHL goalie. But then others, it's like, what do you got to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So, Panthers, do they get better? Do they stay the same okay team?
They're like one of those teams, like, one of those franchises that I just never think about.
Exactly,
like,
that's what I mean.
Like, they're never horrible, never fantastic. They just kind of exist.
Yeah,
like the Arizona Diamondbacks, like, okay.
Yeah, I grew up with the Diamondbacks being really good, and I loved it.
Yeah, but if you're not from there, and you don't, like, that's
I don't really think about the Diamondbacks anymore, and you never really hear about them on the news.
Panthers, same way. Like a hockey team in Florida, weird enough.
I mean, Tampa Bay, but they're also so super good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll think about the Lightning, especially when they get bounced from the first round and ruin everybody's bracket. But the Panthers, like, Oh, yeah. Panthers do exist.
Yeah.
They are one of the 31 franchises.
So let's pop in now with those are the summed up teams that did not make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into the playoffs. First team I wanted to look at is the Vegas Golden Knights. Leonard's playing. Fleury isn't. Fleury
isn't Leonard like the playoff guy, though?
I mean,
doesn't he have great playoffs in his career, or am I thinking of something completely wrong?
He's been good in the playoffs, but you also got to look at Fleury last year.
The year before, Fleury, pretty good.
The year before, like when they went to the Cup, he was insane. He was one of the best in the world. He was incredible in that first year, and they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they lost to a very good Capitals team. Change 2 plays in a couple of games, they win the Cup.
Yeah.
And then last year, unfortunate, they went out in the first round, but he was still incredible. So going into this playoffs, he played in one of the qualifying games, and they won. They won all 3 of their games, but he didn't have that many shots, and he didn't look amazing, but he looked okay. So why they went with Leonard, I don't quite know. He's good, I guess. Like, I'm not a huge fan of him. Like, just as a goalie, as no other reason, but as a goalie, like, it's like, come on. Like, this guy instead of Fleury?
Yeah.
So that was like a surprise to me.
I mean, maybe you treat it
they
like
won. They won the other game. They're playing in 30 minutes.
Maybe you treat it like we use Leonard until he starts to not look very good, and then we know we can plug Fleury in, and like we'll be fine.
And that's what it's been in the past when he was with the Penguins.
Exactly.
It was like
he was that other guy.
We're gonna learn.
Guy.
Yeah, we're gonna use Fleury until he's not good, and then we're gonna use Murray, and then Murray's gonna show up.
Yep.
Because I don't know. What are you gonna do?
Right.
Maybe we see it. Maybe a bad game happens. Maybe not. And you never see Fleury,
it's nice to have that
or you see him,
too, right?
Yeah,
like
that's the good thing with the AB.
It's 4-2. Okay, let's put in Fleury.
Yeah, that's the great thing with the AB combo is you can really go with, or the AA combo, as a lot of people call it. Next is Khudobin for Bishop. I've never really thought Khudobin's like that crazy, but his stats this year say otherwise, and his performance this year says otherwise. He was in Boston before, and I remember seeing him around, and he was like, okay, he was all right, but is he going to keep showing up? They lost. Are you going to see Bishop this next game?
The Stars are so weird, man. Like,
yeah, that's the same kind of feeling I have about the Leonard Fleury situation. It's like Ben Bishop's supposed to be the starter, but Khudobin's the guy who's showing up and winning a game.
And again, maybe it's just one of those like, this is such a weird situation, and like these guys have had such little time to prepare and get back up to speed that it's like, yeah, you have that kind of AA option. Like, sure, whatever. Put Khudobin out there, see how he does. If he does poorly, like, okay, we've got Ben Bishop who's going to go out and do well.
Yeah,
right?
That's how I'm seeing their strategy at the moment. So I don't know if you're going to see him today, later on, or not. But Bishop is really good, but Khudobin's the guy who's in charge right now.
Ben Bishop, pretty tall.
Yeah, a slightly tall guy. I mean, he's a local.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can pop him in sometime.
Friend of the program, Ben Bishop. Those, man.
And then I wanted to touch on the Blues Canucks series. Tyler was very high on the Canucks. You and I were like, I don't know about the Canucks.
I'm only on the Canucks train, especially now more than ever, because I want to see a Canadian team win the Cup. Just because that's cool. They deserve it.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're hosting everybody. Like, come on.
Calgary's playing the Stars, so who you got?
But I got to go for them. I mean, come on.
Okay.
Not that there's going to be a Stanley Cup parade when a team wins, but like it'd be cool.
Yeah. Wouldn't be the first parade you went to.
That's not wrong. Wouldn't even be the second.
Go
I've gotten lucky. Yeah, I've gotten lucky the past couple of years.
So yeah, the Binnington didn't look great. My brother texted me this morning. He's like, man, they exposed Binnington last night with his blocker. He's like, this is going to be a long series for them. Binnington was the reason I was with the Blues from round 1 last year.
Yeah.
Because I remember my brother, me, and one of my buddies were talking about that whole series, the Stanley Cup in general.
Yeah.
And we were like, all right, who do you think's going to win? Because we were doing our brackets and everything. We're like, all right, who do you guys think? And my brother had the Blues out. And I was like, dude, like, you cannot count out Binnington. And we weren't like paying attention to that series all that much, but I remember watching the first game and he made incredible saves, like buzzer beater saves. He was incredible. Is he the same thing that he was last year? I hope so. I hope he kind of turns around. But last game, he just didn't look like he was in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those teams that's like, if they're on, I'll watch, but like I don't really have a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about the Blues.
I just watched the highlights from that game. I didn't actually like catch any of it.
But like Binnington feels like one of those guys with his talent and his age that's like is kind of the coming of that new guard, right? Like that's when you look at like
Binnington's
the next
gonna be a
generation.
big name, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I hope
he's
he
going to
is.
be the next guy that 10 years from now, he's still like, oh yeah, Binnington's a stud, right?
Yeah. So I'm interested to see if Blues figure it out or if they don't, because on the other end of that with the Canucks, Markstrom, who I think is underrated as can be, he's incredible. The saves that he was making in the first game were nuts. He is a super good goalie that you really can't count out, and he kept the Canucks in that game through and through. And then the Canucks just figured it out on the other end and started scoring, scored a bunch of goals in the third period, put the Blues out. Like, all right, like Binnington, like this is your time.
Yeah.
Some of the goals he let in were like, I don't really think that's like Binnington. Maybe that's just a first game thing. Maybe they were thriving on a home crowd last year, which those rinks were insane.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know how they're going to do. I really hope Binnington turns it around, but Markstrom, you got to give him credit and watch him a lot more.
Fun fact about Jordan Binnington, his sister was when I was in college, our fraternity's international sweetheart was Jordan Binnington's, I think, younger sister. Yeah, I guess it would have had to have been younger sister. That's all I got about Jordan Binnington, but yeah.
I got some stories about Binnington, but that's for another time.
Okay. It's our podcast after dark, huh?
What I've heard is he's a very committed guy. I've heard his story on Chicklets about kind of the day. I think he went to like Vegas or something. He was like, all right, I'm going to just have like one night. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to go ham. And then he's like, all right. And then after that night, I show up, I do nothing except for get better. And then like, I think that was like 2 years ago, he won a cup.
Yeah, it worked.
Like he sat down and he figured out, all right, I want to be this NHL goaltender. I want to be really good. I want to be remembered, which a lot of people need that. They need to like really have a realization with themselves. Like, you know, I want this life.
Right.
I need to earn it. Cause he was at that cusp of AHL, NHL, where he wasn't anything in the NHL, but he was okay in the A, you know? Mm-hmm. So he figured it out. So he's going to be a thing for a long time, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. 100%.
That's going to be a fun series to watch. So keep an eye out for that one. Nothing really else I wanted to touch on. Every other series is kind of going as expected.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Boston winning against Carolina in double OT. Good game. You know, can Carolina figure out Boston? I don't really think so.
Pretty good.
Bruins. Kind of. Bruins. I'm put in the clip.
Bruins. Whoa. 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 Whoa.
Absolutely.
And then I guess just to wrap it up, we can talk about one of the lower picks in the draft upcoming. Let's just look towards the future, except for the upcoming games. We'll revisit that in a month. Yaroslav Askarov. I've seen him in World Juniors. I think he was projected to go 8th to the Minnesota Wild. So talking back,
so boring.
Super boring team. Yeah, the Wild, maybe they get a really good goalie and they take off, but he's in the KHL right now. I don't know if he's going to come over after being drafted, because like some NHL goalies, or like drafted goalies, do that.
Wait, yeah.
They're like, yeah, I'm just going to stay in Russia for the next 6 years. See you guys when I'm 29 or something like that.
Yeah,
but
I'm going to come when I'm in my prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've seen him. I've seen his highlights. I've looked him up before. I'm pretty sure I've written about him in blogs. He's an impressive goalie. But, you know, have you seen any huge Russian goalies do anything crazy lately besides like Bobrovsky? Is Bobrovsky even Russian? I think he is. Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah. I'm thinking of someone else who like I thought was Russian, but is like actually like Czech or something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking Bobrovsky was more Eastern European.
Yeah, but so Askarov, be on the lookout for him. Look him up on YouTube. Look up some of the clips from him. He's a very impressive goalie. I feel like once we get closer to draft time, you'll hear about him more. But unless you've looked him up by now, you've maybe only seen him in World Juniors, and he's good.
Yeah. I mean, we'll definitely have like a bigger draft episode when the time comes.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of touch on all this stuff. We'll wrap up here as we're kind of closing in on 45 minutes. But if you appreciate our NHL talk, I'm sure we'll go more into it in our Hockey Monkey episode, our Off the Ice episode here in a couple weeks.
Yep.
We're going to be with the Dallas Stars insider, writer from Defending Big D, the SB Nation blog. Rob McClay is going to join us. That'll be a fun one. Good buddy of both of us. He'll have great insight for us, especially as the playoffs continue to progress.
Yep.
Going to be back again in a month's time with the Outer Roll. We're going to have friend of the program, Ev Bomarito, back on the podcast.
I am so excited for part 2 with Ev.
If you haven't listened to it, first of all, I'm surprised because that's far and away our most popular episode was with Ev a couple months ago.
People love him. He's
yeah,
a great guy.
It was a great interview. He has a podcast of his own between 2 posts. I'm sure we'll get into that. But definitely stay tuned. Have your notifications on. Stay subscribed to the Monkey Sports Podcast for our next Outer Roll episode and our next Off the Ice episode. We're back next week with an episode of Monkey Ball, our baseball monkey podcast. So if you're one of those weird guys that's like a hockey goalie and a catcher, stay subscribed. Stay tuned in.
Surprisingly, you'd be surprised.
Imagine,
There's
right?
a lot of guys who you talk about.
It's like good hand-eye, yeah.
Tuesday nights I play adult league, and then Wednesday I play softball, baseball, or something like that.
Makes complete sense.
There's a lot.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But if you are a baseballer yourself, stay tuned for our episode of Monkey Ball. Otherwise, we'll see you in either 2 weeks for Off the Ice or a month for the Outer Roll. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, wear a mask, wash your hands. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.